Hey guys, this is Finance Ease, and you're listening to Finance Ease podcast series. I'm your host Himanshu Jain. In this podcast, we are going to have a real chat with industry experts on investments, markets, and macro analysis. Also, young finance enthusiasts who are bringing change to the industry and how their career unfolded in the world of money management. All are going to be our guests. Stay tuned. In our today's episode, we are proud to have someone who is associated with the advisory side of the business, being it legal or financial. Being involved in advising a rich clientele on capital markets and related decisions making, he has played an instrumental role in various mergers and acquisitions transactions, fundraising, and corporate restructuring. Also, whether it be dealing with securities laws or corporate commercial laws or inbound or outbound investments in India, he is the man to be called and relied upon. He is a qualified company secretary by profession and possesses deep interest in managing legal transactions of the business. If I have not conveyed already that he is notably sharp, intelligent, and holds a keen business and legal acumen, allow me to add that he has been involved at various stages of startup ecosystem too. He's working with Dolce Vita Trustees, a boutique consultancy firm, and previously worked with Findoc Financial Services Group. He likes to read, enjoys food, and loves traveling in his spare time. We are pleased to have Mr. Shivam Gera with us today as a guest on our podcast. Hi Shivam, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, hi Himanshu. Thank you so much for such kind words and warm welcome. And I'm really humbled and really grateful to be on your podcast series as a guest. And I'm really looking forward to this upright discussion your podcast will have.
Thanks for such humble introduction of me and our podcast. How have you been, Shivam?
I've been okay, just like everyone seeing a critical and interesting era of COVID 19.
Yeah, this COVID 19 actually demotivated many of the business or our economy has been shrinking. And this week, India witnessed shrinking GDP of 23.9%, that is year on year. And we witnessed in many decades we have last seen. What is your say on this? If we can start with that point.
Actually, it is pertinent to note that due to this contagious disease, COVID 19, and its consequential were countrywide and nationwide lockdown, which caused paralysis of business activity, the Indian economy witnessed negative growth in this quarter. Due to this GDP loss, the worst impacted is wage earners category because they are having higher debt and lower income, and due to the unemployment they are facing a huge debt. Though Indian economy saw historical lows, other country also except China also witnessed a staggering crash in GDP growth. And say suppose UK is the most affected after India with a GDP contraction of 20.4%, and US which shrunk by 9.1% on quarterly basis. Further to add, considering this present scenario, it seems like economic impact of COVID-19 has started dimming and we can expect recovery in quarter 3. However, considering the annual GDP of 2020, we can expect a huge GDP loss in 2020.
So, do you expect that in quarter three we can expect to recover a little?
Yeah, considering the economic recovery and the market is recovering, the GDP will cover.
And there are fears around second waves of COVID infection. If that rises, what will the blow on Indian economy?
Yeah, as far as this question is concerned, when India may begin to experience sign of economic recovery, this will depend entirely upon the way in which the COVID 19 outbreak evolves in the country in the coming weeks and months. Suppose if India records a contraction in the current quarter also, then it would have officially entered into a recession, because a recession is typically recognized as two consecutive quarters of economic decline. So, previous quarter was recorded a historic low, and suppose if India suffers a GDP loss in this quarter also, a recession would be declared. And considering the paralysis of in the business activity in quarter two, it is expected that Indian economy will witness a contraction lower in the second quarter than the previous one. As said earlier, it seems like the economic impact of COVID-19 has started fading and should expect recovery in quarter three. However, considering the annualized GDP of 2020, so we can expect a loss of in GDP loss in 2020.
Yet the markets have not taken that into its account that Nifty has been soaring higher highs, yet it had fallen in the last 5 days and it recorded lower lows in the month of March, and yet everybody expected that after the lockdown happened for such a long duration that business activity has to decline. So Nifty did not cover that aspect.
Yeah, it is quite surprising that despite the economic slowing down due to COVID-19 pandemic and lower corporate earnings, the stock market has staged a dramatic recovery. So in over 4 months since March downfall in the market have recovered by over 50%. So first, it is important to mention that everyone that stock prices are supposed to reflect the market expectations of the future profits of corporations. And recently, WHO chief scientist also told that about large scale global distribution, investors believe that, and investors too believe that global distribution of one or more vaccine would be done by mid 2021. Now, see, that's a positive development for the longer term outlook for the economy and for corporate profit, and so it should push stocks up. Further to add, interest rates have continued to fall, and low interest rate boosts the prices of many kinds of assets, including stocks. The stock share price is a little piece of company that is expected to produce some amount of profit every year. And as other kind investments become less attractive, the amount you are willing to pay for that given stream of profit goes up, and it increases the stock prices. Thus, it appears that the stocks are not in bubble, and as said earlier, should expect recovery in quarter three. So, investors are having a positive outlook for the future that corporates will outperform, and therefore the securities are prices of securities are increasing.
Okay, so you have a optimistic outlook after the quarter three.
Yeah.
Let's take the topic to the mergers and acquisition because the COVID also affected business of investment banking section, and you have been involved in various mergers and acquisition transactions. So, what aspects do you focus on while dealing with such transactions after the COVID-19?
So in today's market, the main objective of any company or a firm is to make profit and create shareholders wealth.
True.
So, yeah, so the growth can be achieved either by introducing new products or services or by expanding with its present operation on its existing products. So, there are two types of growth: internal growth and external growth. Internal growth can be achieved by introducing new products, however, external growth can be achieved by entering into mergers and acquisitions. So, mergers and acquisitions have become an important medium to expand portfolios, enter into new markets, and acquire technologies. And further, it gain access to resources and would enable a company to compete on a global scale. So each M&A transaction require different kind of attention depending upon its strategic objective. So as in general M&A transaction, there are several important factors that executives and investment bankers and other stakeholders have to consider, including but not limited to form of consideration, whether it is cash or shares, tax treatment, whether the company is getting the benefit of any tax incentive or the accounting treatment and synergies behind it, and strategic rationale and intangibles. So I have to consider this all aspects while covering an M&A transaction, whether be it post COVID or pre COVID.
So, as you said that whether be it pre-COVID or post-COVID, then due diligence that you place on the transactions, did that change anyhow?
Yeah, as you know, like now in case of big companies and multinational corporations, when one company buy or sell any company or its asset, the whole canvas is very big. Lot of people, lot of document, lot of money is involved, and it is here that the need for due diligence arises. So, for due diligence, one of the key objective is to minimize the maximum extent practicable the possibility of there being unknown liability and risk. So our goal for the due diligence in the M&A process is for buyers to confirm that all seller financial, contract, legal, customers, and all other pertinent information are duly verified, and we ensure that the possibility of there being unknown liability or risk being get minimized to the maximum extent possible. So our goal is to make buyer comfortable enough that he goes through the deal and closes, and no bug in the transaction.
All right. And if I may ask, that in the world of money management, that there is something that catches my attention, and that is people are switching from traditional portfolio management to the alternate investment funds. What is alternate investment funds in India and how they are set up? Can you give us a little guidance?
Yeah, before telling you about an AIF or an alternative investment fund, I want to elaborate in conventional mode of investment.
Yeah.
So, since few years back, the only way to create wealth or financial assets in India was to put your money in conventional investment categories such as stock, bonds, bank, and real estate. Now, with the rise of high net worth individuals in the country, there is a steady rise in the demand for non conventional investment avenues such as AIF, which is also known as Alternative Investment Fund. So, in layman term, AIF is a privately pooled investment fund which collects money from sophisticated Indian and foreign investor for investing it in accordance with a defined investment policy for the overall benefit of its investors. So in India, it is emerging and a relatively new concept as there are around little less than 700 registered AIF in India at present. So moreover, AIFs continue to grow in popularity and are marking their views in the portfolios of high net worth individuals investors. Though there is no assurance of guaranteed returns from AIF, but you may get higher return than conventional mode through robot diversification. And generally, HNIs and institutions invest in AIF as it require high investment amount, unlike mutual funds. So normal or a middle class person cannot invest in AIF unless and until they invest a huge amount.
All right. And on a totally different note, I wanted to ask that India banned Chinese apps, and recently India regulated the FDI route for its neighboring countries, especially China, after they were embarking on our Indian banking sector, wanted to have an aggressive strategy to accompany that. So, how does now FDI changes? Do you have your say on this?
Yeah, due to the facets like definite restriction in FDI regulations and boycott Chinese movement, which Indian peoples are currently following, and territorial conflicts between Indian militaries. So this would force these companies to turn to other investors. Currently, at present, Chinese investment of around $6.2 billion are ingrained in the Indian economy in countless sectors, including Indian startups and tech companies. So, as Indian government has made some changes in FDI regulations, it shows that the government of India is closely monitoring business operations of all companies which have received investment from these Chinese firms or companies. So these companies may resort to fair disclosure practices to demonstrate the commitment towards Indian and its business in India, or they may turn to other investors from other countries, or as per the current FDI regulations, Chinese companies can invest in India subject to approval of central government. So the Indian startups or Indian companies which have taken monies from Chinese companies, they can file a disclosure to central government, and after taking the approval from central government, they can monies from Chinese companies. And further to add, it is expected that investment in this company will drop sharply in 2020 and coming future through Chinese investors. So they will take route of other investors.
All right, Shivam, unicorn. There are unicorn companies, they're like Big Basket, Zomato, Delivery, Byju's, Flipkart, and Paytm. They have millions of dollars in Chinese funding, and they have relied so far on Chinese investments. How will that impact the startup ecosystem too, that has relied upon and placed reliance upon the Chinese funding? Do you have say on this?
Yeah, Actually, up till now, just prior to this recent amendment, they were receiving an adequate funding from Chinese investors, and they were relied upon that investment. So after this FDI regulation change, these companies are resorting to other investors.
Like there are investors like Tencent Holding and Financials or Alibaba Group. They found the success placing in Indian startups. Now SoftBank from Japan has received a funding Indian startups. But what will happen to the Chinese investment that is already there in like Paytm and other unicorn companies? Can you elaborate us on this?
So as per current regulations, Indian legal regulations, they can either sell the investment to an outside investor, or the company can buy back the shares from them. So there are only two routes for these Chinese investors to further invest or to deal with that investment. Either they can sell the investment, or the company can buy back the shares which are held by the Chinese investors. Or if they want to invest in India, they have to take approval of central government.
And the new startups that have not been funded, if they are what they wanted to be funded by Chinese investments, will that regulations cause any disharmony to them?
Yeah, as per the revised regulations, any investment from neighboring countries or where the beneficial owners, including individual, is situated or citizen of neighboring countries, it will require a prior approval of central government. So, any company which is contemplating to take investment from outside India and from a neighboring country, they will require a specific prior approval from the respective ministry, depending upon the sector the company is involved.
And we can see that latest in ban is PUBG after banning the TikTok and the other 118 apps. That is brilliant move by India, or you have something in contradiction with Indian government's decision.
It has been a great move to ban these Chinese apps. Actually, the government is retaliating through these means. China is causing geopolitical tensions. So now, as per my view, it appears that the government is retaliating through these moves by banning these apps and Chinese apps under Section 69A of Information Technology Act and blocking rules.
Yeah, and that will also push the Indian startup founders to have their startups established rather than using Chinese apps, right?
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree on it. As Indian entrepreneurs have turned developing new apps to replace the banned apps, and they are stealing the market gap it has caused.
And so that's an opportunity for new players to enter. Like place of TikTok, now we have called something called Moj, Chingari, and Snack Video.
Yeah, definitely.
On a totally different note, I wanted to ask that on recently SEBI changed its guidelines on securities and margin trading. How does that change investors' behavior and investment markets?
Yeah. So to understand this change, we have to understand what was done prior to this change. So earlier, a client would give a power of attorney to the broker to use client shareholding to access margin for derivative trades. And this led to brokers pooling securities across clients' asset as margin collateral for another client who is likely short of funds. So, in this case, in this scenario, in November 2019, SEBI came up with the order due to the Carvi scandal. Like Carvi stockbroking was having millions of retail broking customers and executes over 2 lakh transactions at that time. Typically, a person get the money in his account on the third day of transaction. But in that scenario, in that particular case, clients allege that they did not receive the money after more than a week of executing the trade. So, passed an ex parte order, and the broking firm Kavi credited funds generated by pledging client security in its own account. So Kavi take the monies from the financer by saying that these securities are owned by me. They declared that. So, pursuant to this crisis, SEBI came up with this new rules, margin rules, which requires the client to pay the upfront cash margin or pledge shares to cover the margin.
And how will that change investors' behavior? Somehow, will that bring efficiency to markets?
It will definitely bring transparency in the market. Before like this change, the brokers were pooling the client's pledge securities into their margin account in a one account in one client's account where all all the pledge shares are pooled. But now the pledged shares will remain in the client's Gmat account. So this will ensure transparency and this will stop some brokers to resort to unfair practices.
So that should make the investors confident now, right?
Yeah, definitely. This will ensure confidence in the retail customers. So this will definitely ensure confidence in the stock market.
That is a very nice explanation of the new trading guidelines, Mr. Shivam.
Yeah.
Well, I must tell you that it feels great having been part of the show that gives us privilege of having a word with you. Thank you so much for your time and being with us today, Mr. Shivam.
And thanks to you for having me in your podcast series. It was really wonderful discussion.
And that's a wrap up from our today's episode. Thanks for listening to Finance Ease podcast. If you like the podcast, you can share it with fellow listeners and do follow us for more. Stay tuned.